This is the last ever episode of What Happened. Ever. Now, I've been saying this for years, but this time I mean it. It all started when an old man was driving his car down a quiet residential street. He wasn't late for anything in particular. It was just one of those rare days where he actually had some free time. But just as he turned onto Elm Street, he saw a woman standing at the end of the road with her arms stretched out. She was making a gesture that indicated she wanted to cross the street, so he slowed down and prepared to stop. But the old man never got the chance before he could even put on his brakes, small blue cars zoomed out of a driveway and crashed straight into the old man's vehicle. The impact sent the old man's car careening off the road and into a nearby bush. And when he finally regained his senses, he realized he was bleeding profusely from a deep cut on his head. As he looked back towards the spot where the blue car had come from, he noticed that it was now occupied by a man who was slowly backing out of the driveway. The man looked like he was in his early 20s, and he seemed extremely nervous. The old man tried to stand up and confront him, but as soon as he did, everything went black. When the old man came to, he found himself lying on a hospital bed hooked up to various machines. His wife was by his side and she was crying. "What happened?" he asked. "How did I get here?" His wife turned to him with tears streaming down her face. "You were in an accident," she said. "That blue car hit you and then just drove away. They only stopped when a witness took a picture of the driver and posted it online. Someone recognized him and told the police who he was and where to find him." The old man felt a surge of anger. That no good he started, but then he trailed off. "Who was that?" his wife asked. "Who was in that car?" The old man racked his brain, but he couldn't remember. "I don't know," he said. "It all happened so fast." His wife nodded understandingly. She knew her husband wasn't really great with names and faces anyway, so it wasn't surprising that he couldn't remember. But she couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. Who was that young man, and why had he tried to run them off the road? Was it an accident, or was there something more sinister at play? As the days passed, the old man recovered from his injuries, but he was never quite the same again. He suffered from memory loss and confusion, and he became convinced that the accident was no accident. He spent his days researching the case online, trying to find any information he could about the driver. But his efforts were fruitless. There was nothing, absolutely nothing, on the internet about the accident. It was as if it had never happened. One day, the old man decided to visit the site of the accident. He wanted to see if there was anything he might have missed when he was disoriented and injured. He parked his car at the end of Elm Street and walked slowly towards the spot where he had been hit. He ran his hand along the rough bark of the tree he had crashed into and closed his eyes, trying to piece together what had happened that day. But as he stood there, he realized there was still something he didn't understand. The street looked exactly the same as it had the day of the accident. The houses were identical, the cars were the same, even the weather seemed to be a perfect replica. But one thing was different. There was a small crowd of people standing at the end of the street, and they were all staring at him. "Can I help you?" the old man asked hesitantly. "Are you lost?" The old man shook his head. "No, I live here," he said. "Can't seem to remember." Before the people could respond, a voice boomed from behind the old man. "Ah, so you're the famous Mr. Williams," he said. The old man turned around and saw a man he recognized from the news reports. This was Detective Miller, the lead investigator on the case. "Need you to come with me," the detective said, extending an arm towards the old man. "What for?" the old man asked. "For your own safety," the detective replied grimly. "There's someone who wants to see you." The old man allowed himself to be led away without putting up a fight. He had a feeling that whatever was going to happen next, he wouldn't be able to stop it. As the detective led him through a maze of dark and narrow corridors, the old man couldn't help but wonder who wanted to see him and why. Was it another victim of the blue car killer? Or was he the intended target? When they finally reached the end of the hall and entered a small, sparsely furnished room, the old man's heart skipped a beat. Sitting in the only chair in the room was a man he knew all too well. It was the driver of the blue car. The man stood up as the old man entered the room, and a cruel smile spread across his face. "Ah, Mr. Williams," he said. "We finally meet." The old man stared back at him, his mind racing to piece together the clues. Who was this man? Why had he been targeted? Most importantly, what was the significance of the blue car? Suddenly it hit him like a ton of bricks. It's a blue car, the accidents, the killings. It all made sense now. This wasn't just a random act of violence. It was the work of a madman who had been targeting him for a very long time. But why? What had the old man done to deserve this? The madman leaned closer to the old man, his eyes gleaming with manic energy. "Don't you recognize me, Mr. Williams?" he asked. "We met years ago. You were the one who called the police on me." The old man recoiled in horror. He remembered now. Years ago, he had been a police officer and had arrested the man for stealing a car. But why would the man hold a grudge for so long? And why kill so many people in such a gruesome way? "Why are you doing this?" the old man asked, his voice shaking. "Why kill all those people?" The madman laughed, a sound that was both chilling and insane. "They were just the extras, Mr. Williams," he said. "The real target was always you." The old man felt a chill run down his spine. He realized that he had been right all along. This madman had been targeting him from the very beginning. But why? What had he done to deserve this? The madman's eyes narrowed. "You ruined my life, Mr. Williams," he hissed. "Now I'm going to ruin yours." The old man struggled to make sense of the madman's words. He had been a police officer years ago, but he couldn't remember arresting anyone for stealing a car. Why would the madman hold a grudge for so long? And why kill so many innocent people? Just then, the detective who had brought the old man to the room burst through the door. "It's over," he shouted. "Put your hands up where I can see them." The madman hesitated for a moment, his eyes flickering between the old man and the detective. Finally, he let out a loud sigh and slowly raised his hands. As the detective approached him, he couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Justice would finally be served. The madman would pay for his crimes. But as the old man watched the events unfold, he couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Something about this story didn't add up. Was he really the madman's only target? Or was he just a pawn in a much larger game? Right. And who were the people who had been killed? What had they done to deserve their fate? The old man knew that there were still questions that needed to be answered. The truth was far more complex than he had ever imagined. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to leave us a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.